Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Postgame Show presented by PointsBet. Use that promo code CHGO when you sign up to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. Luke Stuckmeyer, Cody Delmendo, and Corey Friedman as we get ready to talk about a 7-1 Cubs win over the Cardinals. The series is split. The Redbirds were red hot coming into this. This is our playoff series, Cody. This is it. Like game 5 coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, I was tweeting a picture of us. No, I don't know about you guys, but I think I'm at the end of the year, I might be able to rank this night as one of the best games of the year. Top 5, I want to say right now. I'd have to go through and make sure, but I know as far as during this stretch of games that the Cubs have been playing, this was the best game of that stretch. And there's been a lot of good baseball of late. So for me to say that, I think says something. So yeah, no, it's just tonight was fun.
What made it so special for you? I mean, obviously we'll get to the Pat Hughes stuff, but like game wise, was it Farrell shoving the Cardinals?
Well, first off, I didn't even have any expectations for Farrell. I was hoping that he'd be able to go through the lineup once at least, and then he ended up going twice, and then he gives up a homer, and then they take him out. I think it was Lars Newbar he led off tonight, so the third time through. So I thought because of him, obviously Pat Hughes, but also Pat Hughes gets told that he's going to be in the Cubs Hall of Fame, and then within minutes, Nolan Arenado goes on a freaking tantrum. And I will, as a fair man, I'm a fair and balanced man. I've never been biased on this podcast ever before, ever.
Right.
Journalist. And I will say that he had a good reason to complain there. So, but anyway, it was still great. All things considered, what happened that time span. And then the Cubs offense came alive in the middle to late innings, like Zach McKinstry hitting the homer. Nico is back in terms of his offense, 3 hits tonight. Like they just had all kinds of good things going tonight. Freaking Sandberg sung the stretch. Like I wish I would have been at the game and not here. I could have gone to the game and just just raced home as fast as possible. But yeah, no, I just think you got a little bit of everything tonight, but I think Pat Hughes being named to the Cubs Hall of Fame was really the big thing that kind of made it even better. And it was just nice to really beat up on the Cardinals too, because they've been hot. And they had their guy. Michaelis isn't no slouch. Like he's a good pitcher, and we put up 5 runs on him. So it's nice. It's just nice to be able to have these moments in a season like this.
It was a good game. It was, McKinstry made it fun with the home run. I agree. And in a little bit, we're going to talk about Pat Hughes, which is one of the reasons I said, Corey, you got to jump on, because I wanted to do a wellness check. I knew he had been weeping throughout the evening. His love, he has 2 people, John Lester, Pat Hughes. He waxes poetic about both guys. So I want to give him a chance to do that. Nico 3 hits was nice to see. How about Brandon Hughes again?
Oh yeah.
Huh?
Leiter Jr.
3 guys,
also.
3 strikeouts. Yeah. Sit down.
Mm-hmm.
That's
the entire bullpen actually. Really
better outing from Wick,
really.
Too,
Leiter was good.
Struggling.
Yeah. And who closed it? Who closed the game out? I already forgot who pitched the 9th inning.
Castro.
Oh, Castro. Yeah, Kerwin Castro. I mean, the bullpen was great. I mean, obviously only got 1 run for the entire game, but I just was not expecting this performance with Luke Farrell starting the game, guys. I did not expect this at all. Not at all.
Well, they did
coming off
well
of a doubleheader day too.
You're right.
Go ahead, Corey. What'd you say?
Just coming off of a doubleheader day too. They had a lot of. I know our guy Ryan Herrera tweeted out probably his longest roster news tweet of the year. I mean, there was 8 bullet points in that one, and it included Hendricks, guys coming up, guys coming down. So I think for this team to, as Cody said, play this well after a double header yesterday, you get clobbered in one of those games, and to go up against Michaelis, who had been doing really well, again, they're in a good stretch of baseball, and they have a chance, somehow to keep this series streak going. with the game tomorrow. So it's for the ups and downs of this season, and there have been some real lows. This last few week stretch is definitely a positive one.
Yeah, I mean the countdown to 63, as we like to call it, is now below 10. Cody, we're getting closer and closer to the magic number.
Man. I'm telling you, we're gonna start saying the march to 70 soon. I don't want to get too far ahead, but
Jack already has. It's 15 games to 69.
Nice. All right, 15 to 69, 16 to 70. We might as well just go there. Maybe it's because the vibes are just we're vibing. You're tweeting pictures of dudes with their shirt off at the ballpark.
How about that guy? It's not. I mean, it's not that hot outside.
Yeah,
he was getting all heated at the ballpark.
Yeah, that had to have been perfect weather there tonight, considering how it felt like when I was outside today. So,
now, I mean, the game was cool. It was fun that it was the Cardinals. It's fun that they're competitive against the Cardinals in this series. But the Pat Hughes thing caught me off guard because when they started doing the weird toss from Marquee to the radio booth, I was like, what? I don't understand. Why wouldn't Crane Kenny just do the interview on both? I sent her a chat. I'm like, well, this is strange. What's going on here? Why wouldn't he just do the radio interview and then go do the TV interview? How big could this interview? So then I started thinking, what is he going to announce? And then it was kind of a little bit awkward. Pat was talking, but almost as if he didn't know what Crane was going to talk about. And then Crane kind of jumped in and was like, well, Pat, I want to talk about finally they get around to it. And it was kind of a fun moment. I thought it was
you texted me and Ryan in the group chat and was like, what is this? What what are they doing? This is bad.
What are they doing? Why would they simulcast Crane Kenny in the broadcast?
Yeah.
He can't do both.
We started to see some tweets about that too, where it was like, oh, great. We get to hear from Crane Kenny, just what everybody wanted, right?
Yeah, exactly. To talk about renovations,
right?
And
yeah,
money.
Something.
And it's oh, cool. Feed us more of your bullshit, Crane. Thanks.
Matthew says. Then somebody pointed to the paper, and I was like, "That's to tell him what he had to announce." Okay, it was a nice moment. I was suspect at first. By the end, I bought into it. Pat was clearly emotional about all of it. So Jose Cardinal and Pat Hughes going into the Cubs Hall of Fame. Buck O'Neil, I guess the Cubs Hall of Fame, they automatically put him in because he's going into the Baseball Hall of Fame. These were the two, Cardinal and Pat Hughes were the two that were voted on by a committee, some media members, and also some former Cubs players. So that's kind of cool. And I saw the Eddie Vedder video was kind of neat that he's the one that broke the news to Jose Cardinal. So I would assume whenever that ceremony happens, I would assume Eddie Vedder is going to be there.
Well, I think on the Twitter graphic the Cubs put up that they're going to be doing it in September, so it'll be soon.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I can't wait to hear them speak, as in Pat and Jose. More so Pat because, I grew up with him, but yeah, it's just very cool. And they still got one more guy that I absolutely need in it, but I'll take Pat Hughes tonight.
Corey, are you going to be there for the ceremony? And will you be wearing a tuxedo?
If they let people in, I'm going to get my nicest old school sweater, some trousers.
That'd be great if everybody wore his sweater.
It will be in September, so you get that fall brisk breeze probably.
Yeah, do Pat proud. But, and on Eddie Vedder too, I've been to a bunch of those concerts for Pearl Jam at Wrigley Field. And, that was another cool moment because Eddie has talked a lot. He always brings it up in those concerts, how much he loved Jose Cardinal. And I think he had, his mitt or his, baseball cards and things like that growing up. So he's talked a lot about that. So it was cool that they allowed him to do that. And, he seemed a little emotional too. He was like, I never thought I would be on a FaceTime call with Jose Cardinal, having the opportunity to make an announcement like this. So that was cool. And as a big Pearl Jam fan, this was I felt like there's some nights in life where you kind of feel like you're in like a little bit of a fever dream. Like a lot of this is like really catered to me specifically. I'm like watching the Pat stuff, and then Eddie Vedder's on the Cubs Twitter. I'm like, what is going on tonight? Like, this is great.
This is great.
I mean, and John Lester was just here. If he had been at the game tonight, I would have been like, all right,
I'm in the
Matrix or something.
Yeah,
like,
we would have sent the paramedics to your home. We just called, get somebody over to Corey's house immediately.
Right.
I mean, 40 seasons in baseball for Pat Hughes, 7,000 plus baseball games he has called. I mean, think about how many baseball games that is. And what was the stat? 9-time Illinois Sportscaster of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, something like that. Yeah.
And so then I started thinking as I was watching it, and then people were talking about it on Twitter and stuff afterwards. And you're not going to hear anybody say a bad thing about Pat Hughes, But then I started thinking, all right, Cubs have had some great broadcasters, radio and television. Who is your Mount Rushmore of Cubs broadcasters? I mean, Harry Carey's on it for sure, right?
Yeah.
Jack Brickhouse is on it for sure.
If I had to do it,
I would say Pat Hughes is number 3, which leaves number 4 up to a great debate.
We talking play-by-play, no color, right?
Oh, you can do color guys too.
Okay.
Yeah. Cubs broadcasters.
I mean,
you could even do end of game sideline guys if you wanted to.
Luke Stuckmeyer. I really loved, Bob Brentley back in the day, like when I was a kid, but he just wasn't here for a really long time. But I also like Chip Carey because when I was not even 10 years old, he's who I first heard whenever I became a Cubs fan, really. So, but I guess, there's a big debate. I mean, Lynn Casper, I know everyone wouldn't want to put him on there just because.
Well, do you guys agree with the 3?
Now, but
do you agree with the 3 that I had, that it's Harry, Brickhouse, and Pat Hughes should be the first 3?
I'm not sure you could. I don't know if you could debate that, to be honest with you. Like Cody and I are in a unique spot just because we're around the same age. So, some we obviously didn't have too much experience with. And, like Cody, like I know, not everybody thinks that Chip Carey is necessarily like the best, but, like that was what Cody and I were growing up with. Like when Sammy was dropping bombs onto Wayland Avenue,
that's
track
and his call.
Right.
And the calling of the Kerry Wood strikeout, 20 strikeout game, that's him, right? And then
it is Steve Stone as well. It's Steve Stone as well. True. I know he's gone to the White Sox, but Steve Stone called a lot of big games. I'm
probably
not even old enough to know Lou Boudreau and Lloyd Pettit. Like there's great from the past. Jack House, I'm on Ernie Banks calls, stuff like that. So Brickhouse is easy. Harry's easy. Pat Hughes is easy. Casper, because he did, like a World Series team. It hadn't happened in 108 years. Len Casper.
He was the longest of my life.
What about Ron Santo?
That would be my pick.
There you go.
I would say for me, the 4th guy is Ron Santo. Like
me too.
Voices I associate. And if it's not Santo for me, then it is Steve Stone.
Yeah.
I think I would go Ron or Len probably, but I mean, if it were really up to, because Len is one too, where he just has so many calls of the formative portion of being a fan when I wasn't listening to Pat, which was rare. But you think of the Aramis Ramirez walk off against the Brewers, the "oh baby," right? He had a pretty signature call, but I'm going Santo just because when I think of listening to so many of those games, I have a lot of things I could say about Pat, and I probably will. But Ron just had a passion that embodied what it means to be a Cubs fan that I don't think anybody ever will or ever has kind of come close to that. When you were listening on the radio, Pat was taking care of painting the picture, and Ron was in the background letting out your, as a fan, innermost thoughts, right? And feelings straight into a microphone on the radio.
the classic "oh no" Brant
Yes,
Brown,
right.
like
Right.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like
Everybody in the chat doing it.
yeah, that's what everyone in the chat's saying.
I mean, nothing made a long car ride somewhere easier than listening to Pat and Ron Santo. You know, like those two, just the way they played off each other, you know, like you said, Pat would be painting this picturesque, you know, the sun is, he just had one the other day, Pat did. I was listening on the radio, and instead of saying the guy caught the fly ball, he said that the Cardinals outfielder is underneath it and the sun is glistening off his sunglasses as he makes the catch. And you're like, it seems unnecessary sometimes, but then when you think about it, you're like, it painted a perfect picture in my mind of what he looked like instead of just, oh yeah, a guy caught the ball. Like he brought you to the field by making a comment about the sun sparkling off the sunglasses of the outfielder. And then you could almost picture Wrigley Field in your mind instead of just simply saying he caught the ball, there's 2 outs.
Right.
But he would paint that beautiful picture. And then, like you said, Ron would have just this belch of Cub fandom inside of him that everybody wanted. It was funny. It was endearing. And, you know, people that don't like that will criticize that Ron Santo was not, you know, factually into it, wasn't prepared for stuff. That wasn't his job. His job was to be exactly who he was. And that's what I love to see in both play-by-play and color analysts is just be who you are. I don't need somebody to come out there and fake who they are, you know? And so he was exactly who he wanted to be. And it was radio gold. I mean, I couldn't get enough of it. I would turn down the TV sometimes just to listen to the radio. It was that good.
I didn't listen to the radio a lot when I was growing up, so I didn't get a lot of Ron Santo and Pat.
Well, they didn't have television when I grew up, Cody.
Well, I'm just saying, like, anytime I was tuning into the Cubs, it was usually at home in front of my TV. So that's why, you know, in my opinion, you can go Lynn or Chip or Ron in that last spot. If you want to flip them out every other month or whatever, if you wanted to, I don't know. But to me, I'd probably put Lynn just because he is the majority of my Cubs fanhood. And I know a lot of people are still salty about the White Sox thing, but I think he will unless the White Sox start winning for the next 15 years. I think he's always going to just be remembered as the Cubs broadcaster and how his career got to where it's at. So, and I'm okay with that. So that's just my personal opinion. But yeah, Ron or Chip would be fine too.
Well, my question would be, you know, obviously Pat's not going to do this forever. I don't want to break that to Corey, but obviously he's not going to do it forever. And it's certainly one of the reasons why, like right now, like, come on, put the guy in the Cubs Hall of Fame, put him in the actual Hall of Fame, put him in the Baseball Hall of Fame. But when he is finally done broadcasting for the Cubs, and that'll be a tough replacement, is Len Casper the radio guy? Do you bring him back? Do you pay Len whatever it takes to leave the Sox and come back and be the radio guy? Who's your radio? If it's not Len Casper, who is the voice you would want to hear as the replacement when Pat finally steps down? It's not easy. Like Len is an easy voice to throw out there and be like, well, you just bring Len back, but you put him on the radio side.
Yeah.
I have an idea. Chip Carey's kids are both broadcasters in the minor leagues right now, and they do it together.
Okay.
How about the Carey grandkids, great grandkids, right? How about them being the next radio voice of the Cubs?
People would get on board for it.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's going to be people are going to line up, and they'd all be good at it. Zach Zaidman would be good at it. Andy Mazer would be good at it. Jordan Burnfield would be good at it. Like there's a lot of guys that have already done it that have filled in that would be good. It will be interesting. It'll be interesting. That's all I'm going to say.
I have no comment on this.
Corey can't even comment. He's so emotional.
Lucas in the chat says Josh Carey is doing the Rocket City Trash Pandas right now.
Yeah,
So.
I think I saw a recent interview with Chip saying that the two boys are doing it together. They've asked to do it as a tandem, and their team's embracing it. I don't know.
Brendan says, let Luke replace Pat. I mean,
Luke who?
you.
I've never done. No, yeah. First
Well,
of all, that's a joke, and second of all, I've never done play-by-play of any kind in my life. Just something I never sought out doing. I guess I take that back. I was forced to do high school basketball state championships, but I did color analyst in Nebraska, but that was like 2 years and nobody was watching.
If
I've never done it.
If Pat sticks around, for another decade or two, which I certainly hope he does, and then we replace him with you, Luke,
Sure,
you're already Grandpa Stuckey. I mean, you would be pretty up there. You think you would be up for it?
No, I mean, I'm almost as old as Pat. Let's be honest. That sweater that he wears, I wore that sweater in high school. I had it. Honestly, I've had the sweater that he wears. I have worn a sweater very similar to that in my lifetime.
Do you still have it? I could use it for Halloween.
No, definitely not. But
we should all get
it was a popular look
to wear.
It was a popular look for a while. I'm going to say circa 87, 86. It's a mid 80s look.
Pre-Cody and pre-Corey.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about that. He's been with the Cubs, Pat Hughes, since 1996.
Yeah.
That's your whole lifetime, right? Like, you don't know another radio voice.
I don't want to.
I love the chat reacting to all of our ideas, and they're either like no or like, oh, I love this guy, but then like there's some of them that everyone is like they all agree that they're either good or bad. I'm not going to say names, but yeah.
Right, yeah. Well, that's the thing about, we've said that before, like, about broadcasters, you never hear anybody say anything bad about Vince Scully. You don't really hear anybody say anything bad about Pat Hughes, and that is so outrageously rare in a hot button thing like broadcasters, because people will turn on a broadcast and within 3 seconds they will love or hate that person almost instantly. Sometimes it's based on the sound of the voice, the first thing they said. Sometimes it's how they look or who they're working with or who they're replacing. It's just crazy.
I think it's and like I had a lot of really good responses to a thread that I put on Twitter, and I just, think it's a testament to who Pat is and the job that he does, that, so many people related to it. They had similar stories, similar sentiments. And I think that, for someone to do it as long as he has and have that reputation, I think it, you're right, Luke. Like even now, like, we get comments all the time about, the Sunday night broadcasts, even the marquee broadcasts, people have very strong opinions on, but you just never come across somebody that has a bad thing to say about Pat. And I would think that they were lying if they did, especially about, I don't know him in person, but about his broadcasting and the way that he broadcasts and his style and the way he keeps you informed with the game, et cetera, et cetera. Like you just don't hear anybody say a bad thing about that.
I don't have a ton of like behind the scenes stories of Pat Hughes, but I always enjoyed going into that little lunch room they had, the media room, off to the side of the press box. And he would always sit with Greg, and they would talk about trivia. They would have these trivia contests, and as great as he is at broadcasting, and Peter Chase, the former media relations head of the Cubs, was hardcore for night games, was hardcore into Wheel of Fortune. And so Wheel of Fortune would come on at like whatever time it is, 6 o'clock before 7 o'clock game. And if you knew that whatever that time was, I would love to come in there and see Pat Hughes make sure that he found Peter Chase, because it was a nightly competition for who could get the puzzles faster while they were eating dinner. And I do remember that I got it once. I came through, I saw it, I yelled it out, and they were furious that I yelled out the answer. But as great a broadcaster as he is, he's just as smart with stuff like Wheel of Fortune,
I believe it.
and just a super nice guy, a super nice man.
So, I believe it. Well, I'm glad that I'm glad they did it that way. You know, we were talking about how, you know, everyone was kind of very confused when it started. And I can't remember who said it in the chat, but they were right. It did remind me a lot of the announcement that they did in 2003 with Ron Santo, where they, you know, had it over the PA and you got to see on TV the live reaction to Ron, like kind of looking around like, what? Like they're talking about me right now?
Right.
I was glad that they did that. The reaction, you know, and they posted this on Twitter and obviously showed it on TV, but like Pat's face when he sort of realized what was going on and that he had been bamboozled a little bit by Crane Kenny. I'm glad that they did it like that. That there's a lot of ways to do stuff like that, but I think to be able to see his reaction like that, he's, you know, even when, you know, we were getting some of the quotes or video from Ryan as all this stuff was happening, he's so like humble and gracious, like that he manages to spin all of the answers into talking about somebody else. Right.
Yeah.
Like he immediately started talking. I know Ryan, you know, had a clip of him talking about his first broadcast with Harry Carey and stuff like that. Like even when the attention is about him and the honor is about him, he immediately kind of pivots it away from himself and kind of gives credit to those who came before him or inspired him or something like that. But I'm just really glad that we were able to see that moment and see just a little bit of, you know, kind of that emotion and, you know, pride, you know, live on TV and kind of get to see that for once.
Think of 7,000 games, how many hours of baseball that is in just live content that's going out over the airwaves on WGN and television sometimes, and how long nowadays it would be so easy to, in that amount of time, like how many times would you end up as just a blooper viral across the internet? Like he doesn't screw up very often. Like, you know, his account of what's going on is so factual and so descriptive that he just doesn't miss anything. And, you know, his stories are sometimes repeated, but I don't care how many times you hear him tell a story, whether it was at Ron Santo's funeral or in a broadcast, or they're always heartwarming. You know, he's always got the right story for the right time. And he has a great sense of timing, comedic timing, for pausing at the right time, quickly saying one word, which is so underrated. You know, like he has a dry sense of humor, but like the White Claw ads, he can't even help himself. You know, like he's so talented. Really, he should be in Cooperstown, not just in the Cubs Hall of Fame. Would you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite call? I mean, obviously, winning the World Series is the one everybody's going to remember. I mean, beating the Dodgers to go to the World Series is probably number 2. Is there another one where you can just think of something special or a special moment for you?
I know me and Corey are on the same here.
We already jinxed on this.
We already shook hands on it. It was that the last out against the Cardinals in 2015 NLDS, and he's what did he say, Corey? He's I wish you could all be
right here at this moment.
Yeah.
Unbelievable atmosphere.
Like I actually was listening to that game on the radio that day. I was just entering the media industry. I was working this really shitty job, and I was at some like public forum spot supposed to be covering like some community bullshit. I don't even know what it was at this now that it's been 7 years, Luke. And I had one headphone in because like I wasn't missing this. There was no way I was missing this. So I was listening to the Cubs and the Cardinals game 4 or game 5, whatever it was, in LDS 2015.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there and like I couldn't like visibly react to whenever they won that game, but I was so happy. And because I couldn't like do anything, that was like the first time I think like the Cubs made me cry a little, because I was just so happy, but I couldn't do anything. I had to sit there and just like act like everything is normal, even though like I am just insanely happy, and I didn't know what to do with myself. And so that's why that call that he had in that moment is like my favorite. So
that one to me, is my choice because I think it is emblematic of exactly why Pat is so great, why he's one of the best of all time, and why I love him so much, and why he's been so important to me. It's a longer call than that, but like setting up that last out with Hector Rondon on the mound and just building that moment. But when he says like, I wish you all could be here right at this moment, like part of what I really love about Pat is that I believe he really means that when he says stuff like that. Like the way he broadcasts, and Luke, you were kind of talking about this, like he just makes you feel like you are a part of something that I think we all know and feel as Cubs fans. This greater sense of community and people who understand a particular culture and what it means to go to Wrigley Field. And, if you sit in the bleachers, what it means to do that and have it run through generations of your family. Like, I think that Pat embodies all of that when he's calling these games, and he makes you feel like it's a family member talking to you on the radio and bringing you in so like artfully and vividly into these specific moments that, like Cody's describing, like sometimes you're not able to see, but you feel them like so deeply in your soul. Right. And like, there's just nobody better than Pat to put a voice to that and put words to that and make you really feel that, whether you're watching the game, whether you're listening to the game, and, whether you're thousands of miles away from Chicago in a different time zone or whatever. Like, Pat is the best at making you feel like you are there and you're together with all of these people that are experiencing this same thing as you are.
Lucas has a great comment. He says, Pat Hughes broadcasts like Bob Ross painted trees, right?
Hell yeah.
And it's the same. Pat doesn't have some canned broadcasting voice. He's just speaking the way he speaks. And like same as Vin Scully, in that, like, it doesn't have to be the perfect broadcasting voice. There's something welcoming about it, that the way he presents everything, that you do feel like you're part of what he is not only witnessing. He brings you to that location, whether you're there or not. Like, obviously some people sit in the stands and still put the earbuds in and listen to him in the stands. I don't know if Corey is one of those people, but
I have
they're
before.
out there.
Yeah, for sure. Cody, I mean, you posted the other day about, going to sporting events by yourself and stuff like that, and, feeling more comfortable in doing that. Like, I've done that a lot. And I'll tell you, I this is like, very like cliche or whatever, I guess, but I'm here for it. Like, you go to the Wrigley Field by yourself, you throw in the AM radio on 670, and you don't really feel alone, right? Like, that's what's so great about him, is you feel like you're there with somebody, but you're not, right? But you feel like you're listening to a friend, or you're talking to a friend, and him and Ron are goofing around, like they're laughing and, doing their thing, right? Like, you feel like you're there with, buddies or family. It's a great way to experiencing a game at Wrigley Field. But you have to have the AM radio, right? Because the MLB app is too slow. So the radio's too far behind. So you have to have like an old school AM radio. So that's the way to do it, though.
That's where I come in handy, the old school radios. A huge congratulations to Pat Hughes. We have to see if we can get him on the podcast, especially this offseason. Right? He'd be a fun guy to have call in. I'll work on that, see if we can get the great
work that magic, Stucky, because I don't got that.
I'm pretty confident we can get him on the podcast. We'll see if we. I mean, maybe we'll try and do it before the end of the season, but he's busy now. We'll see if maybe the off season. If not, we'll at least try the off season. Right. I promise that. Cody, what did you bet on tonight?
Okay, so like I had a hit parlay tonight, and I don't know if the other two legs hit, but I knew it was immediate. I knew it was immediately dead the moment Nolan Arenado got kicked out of the game, because he was in the hit parlay, and he already had 2 at bats and he didn't have a hit. So it was like, all right, well, at least I tried. But it was like one of those, like, it was great. Like, it was a great moment, but I was also like, well, I just lost money. But it is what it is. Anyway, Made the bet on PointsBet. PointsBet Sportsbook, my favorite app. I wake up every day and roll over and look at what's going on in the world of sports. PointsBet Sportsbook is counting down the days until football season with a new offer every day until the season kicks off. From now until September 8th, PointsBet Power Hour will unlock a new daily offer from 12 to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. Sign up for PointsBet now using code CHGO to also get risk-free bets up to $2,000. Don't miss out on your chance to get daily access to free bets, boosted odds, and so much more now through September 8th. But that's not it. If you make a $51 or more first-time deposit, you receive a free CHGO membership, which unlocks all of our web content, and you even get a free shirt of your choice from the CHGO Locker. Download the PointsBet app today and use code CHGO to take advantage of this limited time offer. Don't just bet, live your bet life with PointsBet. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER for crisis counseling and referral services. Also, the CHGO Locker is 25% off, so you can use that offer, get a free shirt, and then get another one for half the price or a fourth of the price, whatever. Am I mathing correctly there? I don't know. Yeah. Whatever.
Close.
Something. Yeah.
I don't math either, so yeah.
That's the one thing constant about this podcast. Me and Luke don't math.
Hey, Chicago sports fans, you know what I want to tell you about? Your home for the best Chicago sports coverage is partnering with a leader in sports merchandise and collectibles. CHGO has teamed up with FOCO to secure your access to the best collectibles and gear around, whether it's Bears, Cubs, Sox, Blackhawks, Bulls. FOCO has something for you, your kid, a friend, a loved one, anybody looking to get some new gear, collectibles, or accessories. FOCO has officially licensed gear for men, women, kids, everything from bobbleheads to swimsuits to Crocs. FOCO has you covered in the best Chicago sports merchandise for your favorite team. Head to foco.com. Check out the link below in the YouTube description. For all non-presale items, use the promo code CHGO and you will get 10% off. So if you're trying to buy some Crocs, that's the way to go. Cody, I keep telling you, Crocs are making a comeback. The kids are going crazy with the Crocs.
It ain't making a comeback, Luke. It ain't. No.
I'm telling you, I know for a fact Crocs are making a comeback. They're not in my house, but they're making a comeback. All right. So also today.
Hey, our good friend Ryan Herrera is waiting for us.
Oh, he's ready.
He's right here. I don't know when Joey's going to let him in.
Bring him in.
Hello.
Bring him in. We call him Mr. Wrigley Field. He sleeps there now.
Yeah, basically, I'm here all the time, right? What's up, guys?
We were just waxing poetic about Pat Hughes.
Yeah, I heard the end of that a little bit. So I know
he was. You heard. You were there when he was kind of talking in the press box, right? Like he was kind of surprised by it, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he said that. He was just kind of in the back of the dining room. He said that he always that he thought about it. But that it wasn't like something he ever dwelled on because I think he said something like, these kind of things are lofty goals. So it's like, if it happens, that's amazing. But if it's not something you can keep worrying about or keep thinking about. I think that, Pat seems like the most humble person in the world. So I don't think he ever was like, yeah, I knew it was going to happen. But you had to know it was going to happen at some point. It's Pat Hughes.
Right.
The voice of Cubs baseball. Everyone knew if Pat didn't know it, he'd be the only person that's ever listened or followed the Cubs at all to not know that. But no, he's obviously very appreciative. I know he talked. He mentioned wishing Ron Santo was here to see that. I know he mentioned his parents as well. Talked about his time with obviously Ron Santo. When they were calling games together, mentioned his first year, Harry Carey kind of joining them in the booth when WGN wasn't doing radio or TV. If a national game, if it was a national game, and so ESPN or I don't even know who was doing games back in 90. What was his first year? 96, right? 96.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I don't know who would have been doing games in 96, but if the Cubs weren't on WGN, then Harry Carey would join him and he would join them in the booth. And he talked about that, how he felt kind of awestruck in that sense. And now he's he talked about that. He talked about working with Ron Coomer, Zach Zaidman, all those guys, and just obviously very appreciative of what this moment means. He's kind of I think he said his quote was, I thought about, how did I get here? He thought about that way back when he was sitting next to Harry Carey and Ron Santo. And then, 27 years later, he's thinking about that now. It's really cool. It was a really cool thing. We couldn't hear it. I don't know how many people were paying attention. But then I saw maybe someone tweeted, Corey might have tweeted it or something. And then 30 seconds later, Nolan Arenado starts blowing up at the umpire and gets taken out. And then I asked Pat, and I'm like, did that kind of snap you back into the role? You're appreciating this whole moment. I don't know what to say. All of a sudden you see something that you wax poetic on the radio. And he's like, no, it was I was kind of happy to see it gave us more of a chance to win is what Pat said. Pat is the nicest person ever. And definitely well-deserved. Again, everyone knew this should happen. Everyone knew it was going to happen. So, definitely a good moment for good old Pat Hughes. Legend in the press box right over there. So that's a pretty cool day.
As Cody said, it added to one of the better nights of the season for Cubs baseball for many reasons. I wanted to get you guys. I wanted to see what your take was on the new balanced schedule. They kind of put out the Cubs released that tentative schedule for 2023. They opened the season March 30th at Wrigley against the Brewers. So for the third time in 4 years, they start the season with the Brewers at Wrigley. Interleague versus every team now, right? And so it's only 13 games against the division instead of 19, I believe, is the number.
Yes.
But so I saw a lot of stuff on there that I was like, okay, cool matchup. They go play the Yankees. London, come on, let's go. CHGO, 24th, 25th of June. We need to be there.
Absolutely.
Cardinals, right?
Someone tell Jake. We need
The
to
two
be there.
Sox series,
Kevin.
right?
Yeah.
I love all of that stuff. I'll tell you what I don't like about it.
They even play the Red Sox again next year too.
What's that?
They even have the Red Sox again next year too.
Yeah. So there's some big road trips. Ryan, you got some real good road trips to push for. It doesn't have to be Iowa this year.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what I don't like about it is a lot of the road series they had this year. They didn't change them up. So the Red Sox are coming back here. They're going to play the Yankees in New York. They're going to play Toronto in Toronto. How cool will it next year? They're still not getting Rizzo and Javi's returns to Wrigley. They're playing in New York again. So they're and barring Rizzo opting out and going to some other team they play at home next year, he's not coming back next year. They play Detroit in Detroit. Javi's not coming here. And this, I don't know. I don't think they
maybe spins. Maybe it's supposed to be that way. Maybe it's just supposed to be that way.
I think it'd be cool.
I don't.
I thought you were going to say World Series. That's what I thought you were going to say.
I get everyone's thought on that. You want to see them come and give the standing ovation and all that, but it's also I also don't want to see them play at Wrigley Field not in a Cubs uniform. So
Cody doesn't want to be emotionally attacked anymore.
I disagree. I think it'd be really cool. You saw with Chris Bryant when he came back. His is only 6 weeks after he got traded. That was pretty emotional, and it was a big day kind of at that point in the season. I think having Rizzo and Javi coming back next year would have been really cool. But it seems like they would be coming back in 2024. That's a whole nother year away. I think both those two returning is, I think that would have been a cool thing to happen next year.
Well, Luke, I thought you had a good take on Twitter, and that was kind of the first thing that I noticed when I read it. I'm sure there's logistics that I don't understand and that can't be worked around, right? But that first month of April has 5 series that we're going to sit
and April.
Right, that we're going to sit in a 40-degree Wrigley Field with rain and maybe even snow, right? And then the Cubs are going to be in sunny California and Texas in, I think later in the month in some cases, or later in the season, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. The Dodgers coming to Wrigley Field in April is insane, completely insane.
I agree.
Yeah, Shane said it on the chat too. He's like, season ticket holders get hosed that first month with all those home games. It's like, you don't want to, if you have a season ticket package, you don't want half the games to be in like March and April because, and by the way, the one thing I don't like about the balanced schedule is that it is going to be way more difficult to make up games because you're flying all over the country now, and it's going to be beneficial to the Cubs being centrally located in the country as opposed to the West and East Coast teams that are going to have to be flying cross country back and forth. At least the Cubs are in the middle of the country, but makeup games will be much more difficult. So there's probably going to be more double headers. Teams will just have to force a doubleheader right away, like the next day, to get it played so that they don't have to try and make up and fly across the country to go for one day, go play the Giants. And then, that part of it's a little goofy. But when I saw that schedule and I looked at it, I was like, all right, April and March, they're playing Milwaukee, who has a dome, Texas at Wrigley, Seattle at Wrigley, the Dodgers at Wrigley, and the Padres at Wrigley. I understand that this is done by a computer now and not by human beings. Like they just throw in a computer program and the computer spits it out. That program, whatever it is, should be broken into 1,000 pieces because there's no way this is the best scenario for Cubs fans. Like it just is not. I know every team's going to get screwed here or there, but that makes no sense. April playing 5 series against teams that basically could be playing in 75 degrees at all times.
Well, don't they also end the season with like a bunch of road games? Isn't it like 13 of the last however many games are all on the road? Why don't they just flip that? Yeah, I agree. Because I don't want to be sitting here. It's going to be March 30th. You know how it's going to be like 30 degrees. Maybe that's good for home field advantage for the Cubs or something because all these other, I don't know, Milwaukee plays in a dome. I don't know, whatever.
Seiya doesn't like the cold,
That's what I'm saying. It's gonna be a brutal month, Luke, because like you said, there's a lot of warm weather or dome teams that they could have played somewhere else in warmer weather and better conditions. We're gonna be sitting here. It's gonna be 30 degrees. It's gonna be raining a bunch of those days. It might snow, and it's gonna be a bad month. I can already see it. I foresee this happening.
And Michael, I disagree with you. I love Michael Collada, and he's really funny sometimes, but it's not poor millionaires. It's the poor fans that buy the season tickets and have had them for decades and have to go waste their money and sit there in 33 degrees and mist to watch a baseball game when they could just be seeing it in the middle of the season.
I think it's also, I don't think that's good for the league as well. Like you have so many games that get rained out and you're dealing with rain delays and things like that. Like, yeah, definitely. Like, as a season ticket holder, like that's annoying, right? Like I would rather they be playing in sunny California in April, like, and leave me alone. Like I don't need to deal with it, but like, I just don't think it's good for the league either. Rainouts aren't good. Rescheduling games aren't good. I don't think double headers where some of the games, if they're on the, East Coast, they start at 11:30 or things like that, sometimes when they're in Pittsburgh, like, I don't think that's good for anybody. So like that's, another part of the issue is I just, the season is so long. Like you go through a whole month where like every other day, maybe they're in a rain delay. Like who is that good for,
Yeah. Joel doesn't want Corey. Joel is mad that you have to suffer and sit in the cold to eat a hot dog. It's blasphemy. You shouldn't have to eat a hot dog in 40-degree weather.
And the rain, the bun could get damp. I mean, there's so many different things you have to. I do like the general idea of the schedule though, because like I think that the point is like, the Cubs see, depending on how it works out, they see like someone like Mike Trout, like once every 3 years. And he comes to Wrigley once every 6 years, if that was how they were still doing that. So I do kind of like that. And I think with how they're doing the wild cards and stuff like that, I think it's probably maybe more equitable that like you're not just playing the same division, because like if you're competing for a wild card, you'd look at like the NL Central and think, boy, I'd like to play those teams 19 games a year, right?
Yeah.
But it does, I think Luke's point, I'm curious to see how messy this gets when you have rainouts and things like that, and you have to go all over the country, division to division, and try to figure out how to make that up. It does seem like there might be some issues there.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ryan.
I was gonna say, I always kind of like looked at it as like college football, especially like some of the bigger conferences, as like a lot of those guys, like players, like over 4 years, they might not play in a team the entire time they're there. They definitely won't go to a few away game, a few of the other stadiums in some of those conferences while they're still in college. Like, it's just like there has to be a way to be able to get these players at Wrigley Field or get them on, have Cubs fans be able to watch the Cubs play Shohei Ohtani or Mike Trout once a year. Like I think that's good for the game. It's good for it's good for making this less of a regional sport. It's good for making it. I mean, it is a national pastime, but it feels a lot more regional than if you look at like the NFL. I think this again, logistic wise, is going to be a lot more difficult because you are playing more out of division games. But I think it's better for the game. I think it helps the casual fan or the fan that doesn't see the Cubs ever get more opportunities to see the Cubs, at least once a year. I think that's a cool thing to help out just fans of baseball.
I mean, you guys know I'm old school. I don't need to see Cubs, Cardinals, Cubs, Brewers, Cubs, Pirates, Cubs, Reds 19 times a season. I don't.
Right.
I would rather see them play 3 games against the Yankees. And personally, 4 games against the White Sox, 2 on each side, is the right amount for me. Like, don't water it down so much that it's not fun. If the 2 teams are good, it'll be great. So I get the idea of doing it. I just think whatever program they're using, the problem I always have with the schedule is that first month of the season. It just doesn't seem to make sense. And I know you can't just have no home games at Wrigley Field because then it becomes unbalanced that way. But it makes no sense to have 5 series against teams that can be playing in 80-degree weather. Like almost every home series is against a warm weather or dome team in the month of April and March. So that part of it I think is stupid. Cody, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I'm pretty like whatever about it. Like the April schedule. Like first off, I guess I'm not like I feel in a way I feel bad for Ryan. Like he's going to have to be at the ballpark, but like I'm going to watch it at the studio with Luke.
Yeah, I feel bad for me too.
You know what I mean? Like
feels bad for you.
And like so I'm definitely being like we're asking our opinion here, right? Like I'm definitely being a little selfish about it. Like, do I agree that yes, they shouldn't be playing the Dodgers in April when they could go play in LA or play somewhere else that's warm? Yeah, I totally agree. I guess I'm just not I'm just not like bent over about it. I'm just like whatever. Like let's see how it goes. Like I'm with you guys in terms of like being able to play other teams. Personally, I like when the Cubs play the Cardinals 19 times a year just because like that rivalry like runs my life, but like not everyone is me and crazy and like a little psycho when it comes to certain guys, but like it is what it is. But I am excited to see like I know that like I personally think the Cubs and the Red Sox should be playing every single year. I think that should be like a traditional thing. So I am happy to see that they're playing the Red Sox again next year. I wish the Yankees were going to come here if we were going to have to play them again, only because the Cubs I don't think have actually won at New Yankee Stadium yet, and that ballpark has been open for like a decade. So I don't look forward to that series, but yeah, whatever. I'm intrigued to see how it works out, and I look forward to Luke's weather predictions next April.
Hey, do you have a points bet pick of the week for us, by the way?
Oh, yeah. Right now, we're taking UConn to cover 27.5 on Saturday against Utah State. That's what we're doing. I like it. UConn went 1-11 last year. That's why they're 27.5 point dogs. But Utah State was pretty good. But it is week 0 in college football, Luke, and you know how these things go at the beginning of the year, unless you're like Alabama or something like that. teams aren't like at their peak form in the first week of the year. So I
And
feel
a lot
like
of cupcake matchups too, usually.
Yeah. I just feel like 27.5 is a big number for week 0 for a team like Utah State. So I like UConn to cover 27.5.
That is a lot of points.
Yeah. That said, I know nothing about each team, but that's what it is. That's what it has to do. That's how I gamble on teenagers slinging the pigskin, baby. That's how we do it. So bet responsibly.
Should we get rid of who you got? Well, we should just take care of it real quick. I mean, Ryan's guy certainly had the best game in Nico Hoerner. I did say that I felt like we should give an honorary nod to Pat Hughes, but if Ryan doesn't want to give Pat Hughes the nod on his big day, and you want to be greedy and take who you got.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Pat Hughes isn't playing who you got. He is a pickable person for who you got. So if you would have picked Pat Hughes, you would have easily won. But you didn't. You picked, I forgot who you picked, but they didn't match up to Nico Hoerner's 3-hit, 1 RBI game. You should have picked Pat Hughes, Luke. You should have done it.
Listen, if Pat Hughes is playing Wheel of Fortune in the press box, who's to say he's not playing who you got? He's competitive. He's competitive.
Fair enough. But maybe we can get him if we get him on the show, we can get him to make a who you got pick.
You don't do 27 years of Cubs baseball without being a little competitive. For sure. All right. We'll give Ryan the point. He earned it tonight.
Was it 21 to 17 to 15 to 1 to 1 to 1 to 1 to 0 to 0? I think that's what it is in my head.
Yeah, something like that.
Corey, you didn't pick anyone tonight because we didn't know the Hughes thing was going to happen, and I was just like, hey, do you want to jump on?
Mm-hmm. Right. I would not have won, though. Historically, we can feel safe in that I would have picked. I think Franmil had a couple strikeouts. That's probably what I would have done and just would have lost anyway. So,
what do you think of so now this series, before we wrap this up, the series goes Game 5. This is the Game 5. This is the postseason Game 5, Cubs Cardinals, and you got Stroman on the mound. Treat this day game like a playoff game. Mentally, just prepare yourself and say this is their Game 5 in the postseason. Why not?
Listen, go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead.
This is quick. I'm just gonna say then Cody and Corey that run the risk of them getting really upset if they don't win tomorrow. Shouldn't they treat it like a playoff game?
I was just gonna say that we've said it at least 15 to 20 times over the course of the series that the Cardinals came into the series like the hottest team in baseball, the hottest offense in baseball. Yeah. And at one point, they had only scored 1 run in 24 innings or something combined. Yeah. And they were lucky enough to win one of those games that happened during that span. I'm already kind of content with how the Cubs have played this series. So I am going into tomorrow with we're playing with house money type feel. I know the Cardinals are kind of pretty solidified at the top of the Central, but they do know they need to keep winning games in terms of playoff, seeding. And, the Brewers could magically get hot. I don't see it because I think they're frauds. I've been saying it all season, but I don't know. I just don't feel like there's a lot of pressure on the Cubs to do much tomorrow. And there isn't because it's August and they're out of it. But I have always believed that no matter how good or bad the Cubs are or the Cardinals, these games mean something to those players. So there is a little bit of pressure on both sides, I think. So because of that and being a rivalry, and I'm still waiting for the Cardinals to retaliate on the Cubs from last night. Yeah. So I'm intrigued, but I am looking forward to Marcus Stroman shoving like he did at Busch Stadium. And I know that a lot of Cardinal fans don't like him because he didn't go there. And you know how heavy he is on social media. He reads that shit. So I'm looking forward to his own little revenge type game tomorrow at beautiful historic Wrigley Field.
I keep thinking, the Cubs are in this streak of winning series and, have a chance to keep that going tomorrow. And I keep thinking about, I think it was last week when Nico was talking about, wanting this team to play well, and kind of use it as somewhat of a showcase for next year and anybody in the off season that's thinking about coming here and stuff. And they've just been playing well, right? Like, as I said earlier, like, we've had some real valleys in this season, right? We've had some really long losing streaks and periods where we were, kind of like taken aback at like how bad the brand of baseball they were playing was. But this last stretch, and really, like, generally, like, post All-Star break, their pitching staff has been great. I think the starting rotation has the second best ERA in baseball, over the last stretch of, couple months. And I think about those Nico quotes and how important it is to so many of these young guys, Morel, Velasquez, et cetera, these guys getting an opportunity for this team to play well and sort of go into next year in this offseason with a little bit of momentum. And I think Stroh is the perfect guy for this game. His quotes, I know, over the weekend, talking about pitching at Wrigley Field and the environment and all of that. Like, I think if you could hook an IV directly to Cody and I's veins, like, that would be the liquid we were putting in there, right? And, you get him in, like, I don't think Stroh cares that this team is out of it and that this doesn't mean anything for the division. Like, they got a chance to win this series and beat the Cardinals and continue these kind of good vibes that they have. And he's definitely the guy you want on the bump to do that.
Yeah. All right. We got to get some sleep. Corey can now go dream about Pat Hughes calls and like throughout the evening, and Ryan can finally leave that damn press box. So that's it.
Back tomorrow.
Game
back tomorrow morning anyway.
That's right. We'll be back there, and we'll have post game for it. Corey and Brendan, of course. After we'll have Cody and Ryan and I will do the post game podcast, and then after that, probably Friday morning, I guess.
Yep,
is the Corey and Brendan Cubs related podcast will come out recapping the whole series. So it's gonna be fun. Game 5 coming up. Thanks to everybody for joining us. I
got 2 updates, Luke.
Oh,
2 updates.
Go.
First off, Matt Mervis, 3 for 3 today in Iowa, was on Marquee. I watched it a little bit, not all of it, but a little bit. And I'm in. The guy matches. Not that I wasn't in, but I'm definitely really in now. And also, once again, Yadi Molina is hitting 172 against the Cubs since he blocked me on Instagram because he's a soft, overrated baseball player. Good night.
Hey, at least he bothered to show up for this series. That was nice of him.
Congrats to him. He showed up for his team. Congrats.
He didn't have something better to do.
Also, I'm getting murdered by Cardinal fans on TikTok. You should go follow me and like go fight the war with me because they don't like me over there. So
rally around Cody. Thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs Postgame Show podcast presented by PointsBet. We will see you on Thursday. Until then, fly the W, and Cody.
Boom, 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 boom.